Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. And welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest is Nikki Beauchamp. She is a seasoned multilingual real estate advisor and associate broker with over 2 decades of experience. She recently made the strategic move to join Sotheby's International Realty after serving as one of the founding advisors at Engel & Volker's New York City over a decade ago. She is going to be joining us today about something that every seasoned real estate pro eventually faces, and that's knowing when and how to refresh your brand. She is going to give us all of her tricks and insider advice on how we can make that happen. We're going to hear from her personal experiences and just dive into everything we need to know about when we need to switch things up. But before we get started on that, Nikki, I would like to welcome you onto the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to have our conversation today.
Me too. So let's dive right into things. I would love to hear a little bit more about yourself. I know you've had such an amazing career in real estate so far, and I would love to hear about how you got started, what your career journey has been like, and a little bit about what you do today.
Well, interestingly enough, how I got started was not intentionally. I got my license because I had a friend who was an agent, and I was referring business to this person. Happily, because we all like to support people that we know are great people in their respective businesses. So I was doing it completely without personal interest. And she would say, you should really get your license. I can pay you referral. You can get paid referral fees. I said, no, it's fine. That's not really the point. And eventually she convinced me, saying, look, you are actually generating a substantial amount of potential revenue for me. So it's only right that you can earn based on what you're doing. So I took a week off, because back then the license requirements were such in New York that you could do everything. You could do all of your required hours in like the span of a week. So for 7 days, that's all I did. And then I took the test and I had my license for a bit, mostly as a referral agent. And then I decided, during my first midlife crisis, that I wanted to try starting a new business. So I decided I would become an agent. I sat down, I thought about what my business would be like and what the basis of it would be. And that was that. And that's, almost 25 years.
I love that. Amazing journey so far. And now you're with Sotheby's International. Tell us a little bit about the work you do there and what you enjoy in your current role.
I think, what I think it's so important to think about where you align and affiliate yourself and how the brokerage and the brokerage brand will be a partner to you and your brand. So for me, it was a no-brainer to say, oh, okay, here is an opportunity. This totally makes sense. And I'm also a big fan of involving in my thought processes. So, and because I'm a little bit of a real estate nerd, I can ask people questions without letting on that I'm thinking about making a change. Right. So I could say, okay, what do you think about? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And sort of getting raw feedback from people's reactions is kind of a really interesting way of going about it. And so for the most part, most people are like, oh yeah, of course. Like, that's amazing. That totally makes sense. So
Yeah,
it's been a really great, it's been like a year and a half since I moved to Sotheby's, plus or minus. It's been terrific.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I feel like that could be a whole, episode in itself on like how to find the right brokerage for you and how to, make sure that fit is in alignment with yourself and what you want to do and your goals and aspirations.
And I think that, something that often gets lost in the conversation, I think especially today, is that people, I think that where you start your career probably has a really big impact on your overall longevity. So I think the stats are, staggering that in the first 2 years, most people don't make it to like their first license renewal. And I think it's because people are thinking they're going about it with the wrong strategy. And it really does tie into your brand, the brand you want to have, the brand you want to build, and also the business you want to build. I think it's a very important conversation that needs to be had more often. I see these conversations, and I'm a little bit of a real estate nerd, so I read a lot. I'm involved in a lot of different real estate groups. I go to conferences. Some people will ask questions, and I think to myself, so you want to be here, but you also want all of the things that you would have if you'd gone to the other firm, but you didn't want to go to the other firm because you were like, well, the fees are too high and this is too high. But what is the value that you get from being at a particular firm, and how does that align with who you are, your brand, and your business?
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. That can really be make or break. I mean, especially if you're starting out in your career. And I mean, you recently went through a transition and, it seems like you've landed in an amazing spot and it's really helped you, learn and grow. But it can really be a make or break decision for some people, especially new agents,
I think
making that first decision could really impact your career.
I think it's probably the most important decision that a new agent makes by
Hmm.
far.
Hmm.
And I routinely see people like, and people will call me and they'll say, oh, can I get your advice? And I'm often pretty free with saying, sure, let's hop on a call or let's exchange some messages. And I'll say, well, based on what you're saying, and you're choosing between A and B, A really seems like the right choice. And then they go and they choose B. And then, a year later, like, yeah, it didn't work out. And and there's this constant sort of change. And then I say, oh, well, it didn't work out because I didn't have my system set up. I didn't have my timing set up. And I've watched some people in particular kind of boomerang between a couple of different locations and still have accomplished absolutely nothing, because every time you change, there is a time and adjustment cost to that too, which is why change is so hard.
That transition period, is a lot. It's a lot to go through, on multiple occasions, a lot to get used to, a lot to,
It's a
learn.
lot to get used to. Like, I can't imagine as someone, clearly there is a very specific person in my mind, has been at three firms, I think three firms in the last 3.5 years. And that involved boomeranging back to the firm they started at.
Mhm.
And still nothing seems to have actually changed.
Yeah, that's
So
that's
is that a firm problem? No, that's probably a you problem.
yeah, I think so. I think so. What are some of the determining factors, or what would your advice be to agents on who, if they should make that move or not? Like, what should they be thinking about? What should that thought process look like? What should they really be looking into, when they're trying to select the right
You
move
kind
for
of you
them?
want to think about what is it that you feel is, if you're at a particular firm and you feel that you need a change, what are those things that you feel that you need that you do not have? Okay, fine. Then are the firms you're looking at, do they have those things that you feel you need that you do not have? The other question might be, do you really need those things that you feel you do not have? Like, is there really a need there? Because at the end of the day, the basics are so incredibly important
Yeah.
above everything, all the other shiny things that get thrown at people, above all other things. People say to me, "Oh, well, you are great at marketing and you're great at social and you're great at this." I say, "Okay, but I started using these tools in my business in 15 plus years ago." So what you're seeing is the accumulation of the 15 plus years of experience of learning, seeing, trying platforms that started, grew, went away, but what did I retain from that learning experience, from being on that platform? And how do I use that sort of to iterate going forward? That's 15 plus years of experience. It's not overnight. And I think that that's also the challenge with real estate is everybody thinks, oh, you're going to get into it and it's going to be
And I think,
because TV makes it look so
oh
yes.
gosh, right? So easy to show up, throw a party, and that's your job, basically, right?
Right.
And wear some really nice clothes while you're doing it. So, yeah.
Yeah. And, and I love to be comfortable above all other things. And
Yes.
in some ways, I kind of love that coming out of COVID, we leaned into sort of like putting that comfort. And you can be comfortable, but you can still be dressed in a fashion that is respective and reflective of your brand.
Hmm. Yes. I
Yeah,
think
and
that's,
also, frankly, if I'm walking, thousands of steps a day or in and out of construction sites, I'm probably honestly in flats. I'm in some version of a flat 99% of the time. I
yes.
wouldn't even be able to tell you the last time I put on a heel, actually.
Same.
I'm not even sure I know where my heels are. Right?
Yeah. Or even if they are
It's-
even like remotely in style still, or like fit me right, I don't even know.
right.
And on the same page as the brand, right? How do brands evolve over time as business grows, as you maybe are switching and changing who you're partnering with for your brokerage? Talk to us a little bit about how that brand evolves, what the value of it should be, and how it grows along with your business.
I think, I mentioned earlier that I love asking my clients
Yes.
questions. It is the best feedback you can get. And it also makes people feel like they really are a part of your business and your success. So I will, like, right now, I'm actually going to redo my main personal website. And this website, when I first designed it, first version of it was back in like 2009 or 2010, something like that. I surveyed my clients and I said, hi, I am working on this project. And I have a couple of questions. When you think of me, what comes to mind? When you think of my business, what comes to mind? What are the words that come to the mind? What are the colors that come to mind? And it's really interesting to get that feedback from people that have worked with you. And you use that and you say, okay, this is really interesting because maybe I put myself over here. So maybe I should be thinking about the way that I position and articulate the brand to sort of lean into this. Because clearly, yeah, I like to joke that my ideal clients really all it's I feel like I do the same not the same transactions, but my clients do certainly share key characteristics. And being so attuned to that helps me articulate what I do in a way so that I am pulling in more of those clients.
And that's kind of bringing value along, to your client, to you and your clients, when you're so comfortable in knowing the main type of people that you're working with, your main characteristics of those clients, you're bringing value to them. So you're saying, hey, I know, the type of person you are. I know what you're going to look for. I know, I'm working with people that are just like you. I feel like that's such a great way to brand yourself, is to go off those
Yeah.
past experiences.
And it also shows that you really listen. I was talking to a colleague the other day and I said, it's not about the price point.
Mhm.
It's about the principles and the service that everybody, and this is Fair Housing Month, so everybody is to be treated equally.
Yes.
And I really, really fully lean into that in the way that I articulate my premise, what I do, how I work with people. It doesn't matter if I get a call from you because you're like a referral from my best friend, I'm still going to take you through the same buyer consult or seller consult because, frankly, I need to know the information to frame the strategy that we come up with based on what you tell me is important to you. But if I don't take those steps, that ends up, somewhere down the line when you change your mind and I'm like, wait, what? And people always change their minds, but you are a lot less surprised when you have sort of the very deep conversations initially. I love to take my initial calls like when I'm sitting down because I take notes, pen and paper notes. Sure, I have an iPad, I've got a remarkable tablet, I've got every gadget probably known to man, but very few things beat pen, paper, and if we're face to face, am locking eyes. Okay, and then tell me more about this, and asking those probing questions, and it allows you to really craft a really effective strategy to work with your client.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations. Yeah, talk about, bringing the value proposition, right? I think that's a great way to do it. You're sitting down, you're having those conversations. And as you mentioned, just because it's a friend of a friend, you still need to put in that work. You still need to treat them as they have no idea who you are. And this is just someone who found you, however they found you. I think that's really, really important.
I think it's really important. I think that, the other challenge is that most people don't do this very often. What is the stat? Every 7+ years.
Mm-hmm.
And things today, things dramatically change in the span of a year and a half.
Yes.
So we are in 2025. So if you bought 7 years ago, that puts you in 2018. The 2018 is very different from 2025. Honestly, April of 2025 is very different than April of 2024. So it's my job to bring my knowledge and my context and educate and provide the information and the context so that the client can make an informed decision driven by data. Mm-hmm. Like that's what I feel is a key part of my job. And I actually think in some ways things are easier today for us to access to data, information. Look, we're on a Zoom. Mm-hmm. People in my office joke, and I'm actually working from home today. People in my office joke that when they walk by, I'm either on the phone, like the phone or the earbuds, or I'm on a Zoom, and they're like, "You're always talking to someone." Yeah, I'm like, "Yes, I'm always talking," and I don't like talking to people all the time. Yeah. So this is already like pushing. I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone. Yeah. But I should be talking to my referral partners. I should be talking to people in other markets so that I get an understanding, okay, what's going on? Because what if you say to me, you know what, this is what's going on in Ohio right now. And I think there's really great, interesting opportunities. Here's what's going on in Columbus and here's what's going on in Cleveland. And if I go, oh, I didn't know that. What if I then happen to be talking to someone and it gives me an opportunity to say, well, I was talking to Allison from Ohio and she was telling me that this is what's going on here. And this, what if they say, oh, I didn't know about that. Maybe is that an area that I should be looking at if I want to buy something? Is there an opportunity there? And that's how I uncover opportunities for clients. Yep. Is I am constantly talking to my colleagues in other markets around the world, which means I often don't sleep a lot because sometimes I get the really short end of the stick with the really early morning conference calls. Yes. I talk to the professionals. I talk to my mortgage people. I talk to the lawyers. I want as much information as possible so
Yeah.
that I can frame my perspective.
And
And
bring
I
that
think,
value and perspective to your clients.
yeah, and I think that that's something that like my clients really respect, that I am always in this sort of information gathering mode.
Hmm.
So I will have clients who will say, hey, I need to talk to you, but it's not necessarily about real estate, but I want your perspectives. What are you seeing here? And, they may ask, are there people that that you could introduce me to? I love being a connector.
And that networking, and you mentioned, that you're really involved in real estate groups and going to conferences. I mean, you probably get a ton of value out of that too, right? Like interacting and going to those events. The importance of doing that really,
Yeah.
is invaluable to your career.
The importance of really leaning into networking opportunities that align with your goals. So I love referral business. Who doesn't love referral business?
Mhm.
A key way that I have built such a sort of powerful inbound referral business is I have purposely built relationships, engaging in groups and attending real estate specific conferences. But then I also look at the next layer out from that. Okay, what are my personal interests? I went to a performing arts high school. So for a while, I was on the board of a performing arts sort of scholarship organization. That was great because it was aligned with my actual personal interests. I have a direct connection to. That's do you remember the TV show and the movie Fame?
Yeah. Hmm.
So that's the high school I went to.
Oh, nice.
So it's interesting how when you bring that up, you're like, oh my God, that's so amazing. So
Yeah.
I'm not pretending to like Broadway and the opera and the symphony. I started the piano when I was 4. I played the clarinet from the age of 10. Like this is an actual solid part of my life.
Yeah.
And that discipline actually really has translated throughout my life. So things like that. If there are things that I'm interested, because I was in technology and finance before real estate. So I maintain good connections in those industries and I go to conferences and network around those topics. And those things are also great because I'm a big fan of finding things where real estate people often, everybody goes and they chase the same thing, and it's you're not really differentiating yourselves
Right.
in any concrete way. So why would I not want to be in a scenario or an environment where I stand out
Yes.
because of what I do and my interests and that genuine passion? And I think that if people think about their connecting in that way, it wouldn't be as overwhelming to people. Like
Yeah.
I love supporting small businesses. So I also sit on the board of a business improvement district
Mhm.
in the neighborhood where, I live outside of the district, but I worked in that district, predominantly for 6 years. So that's another important connection. Find ways to genuinely be involved and be engaged. I am not the person who runs around saying, hi, I'm a real estate broker.
Yeah.
First, those are never the first words out of my mouth. And that's a personal thing.
Yeah.
But what that does is that I am building connection before I start talking about the business perspective.
Yes.
So it's who am I as a person? What do I like doing? Who are you as a person? Is there a reason that we connect? And then going from there.
And that helps build that trust. I feel like when
It
when you're
does.
genuine, and that's one of the things that I say all the time. The consumers are going to be able to tell, if you're genuine or not. And if you're leading with, "Hi, I'm Allison, the realtor," they're going to be able to tell, that maybe this is someone, that I don't know that I would want to work with it. When you're having those genuine and open and honest conversations, and you're really, sharing with this person a little bit about you, and they're getting to know you, you're getting to know them. I think that's a basis of all relationships, right? Is having those initial conversations.
It is. It's having those initial conversations. And it's not to say that you can't, like, I love talking about real estate without actually talking about real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And so that by the time it comes out that I am a real estate broker, it's like, well, now that all makes sense because you have opinions and you have data, but it's find ways to build connection. And I think sometimes people go too hard, too fast, and they're too aggressive. And I think that also feeds into how you choose to frame that from an online perspective. And like years ago, I remember the first couple of conferences I went to after I had started, using, blogging and social media. And some people said, you are in person like you are on. I said that to me, that's like the highest compliment someone can pay me.
Yes.
Because to me, my online presence should be an extension of who I am.
Yes.
You should not be shocked when you meet me in person that I might be a little sarcastic or that, like, you shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. Have you seen agents make mistakes when it comes to how they portray themselves on social media versus how they are in real life?
Feel like that's a giant soapbox moment. I think people really need to think about it. And I think especially now in the environment that we are in, it is so important to demonstrate your expertise and your knowledge and the value that you bring to your clients. I think it's so much more important to lean into that over almost anything else. And I feel like people are actually leaning into all the things that don't help you make the case for why you're a professional or why you should be compensated or how much you should be compensated.
Yep, I think so too. Having that solid online presence, being on those digital platforms, making sure that's reflective of you and you're leading with the right things, so key when we think about how to build our brand in the right way.
Yeah, I think leading with you are a market.
Mm-hmm.
It is 2025. Imagine that there is a reasonable reason why people shouldn't know the stats on their market or the quarterly reports. And we are all very fortunate that our associations provide reports, our firms provide reports. There is such an abundance of information. And if you can be sort of a curator of information, so I send out an absurd amount of emails when I think. But it's mostly about in my weekly note and in my monthly note, there's always a section of what are the things that have caught this week or this month. Some of it is real estate related. Some of it is related to New York City lifestyle, travel, everything else. But there is always something that is related to real estate. In my instance, I also have a section that includes where I was recently quoted, because that happens with some degree of frequency. But the key point is I will say, I'm including this, and here's what I think you need to know, why you should be thinking about it. And if you want to have a conversation about it, just hit reply. Hit reply. We can schedule a time, we can hop on a call. And the number of times that I end up in conversations with people, because that's all we want to do. We want to stay in conversation with people, because guess what? If they're not talking to you, they will end up talking to some other agent at some point in time.
Yep. And they're going to go to someone else who's showing themselves as that better expert. You want to be seen as the expert on your area. You want to be putting that out there, sending those newsletters, having those conversations, even sharing on social media. Like, hey, I noticed that this happened. Like you mentioned, like this week there was this going on. And, I noticed this. If you want to learn more, reach out to me. That's some great stuff that really can set you apart.
It's really great. We all have all of this information. Like let's say last summer, I went to Greenwich, which is a suburb just outside of New York, and there was a home tour organized for the people from the local offices. And one of the homes that was stored was the estate of the late Mary Tyler Moore. Who doesn't know Mary Tyler, right? That's like epic. So that to me, I'm like, this, if there's one house that I specifically need to highlight that I got to see, it's this. And when there was a wall, it was a wall of various pictures. And I took like a video and I basically said something like, this is such a unique life moment.
Yeah.
Because here's someone that, I grew up seeing on television. Like, how epic is this? And I shared that to social.
Yeah.
And when the estate just sold, maybe like a month in the last couple of weeks. So in my email newsletter, I took that video. I said, some of you may remember that last summer I had the opportunity to visit this gorgeous estate. It has just traded hands. I'm including the video, blah, blah, blah. And people were like, oh my God, we do remember. That was so incredibly cool. It's so great that I get to see a lot of interesting properties just in the course of my daily work. And I work at all price points. I work with people who are renting apartments for the first time in New York City, and I work with family offices and individuals who are buying on Billionaires Row. So and to me, it's very important to articulate that clearly to people so that they don't feel that there are things that I simply wouldn't do. I like to have the right of first refusal. I would much rather you call me or email me and say, this is what I have. And me say, you know what? That's not really in my wheelhouse. Here is who you should call. If I know someone, I will make the connection. Or that's not based on what you're telling me and their wants and their timing. That doesn't work with my schedule and load of clients right now. Because you have to be very honest when you don't have the capacity. Or you can say, okay, I may, if it works with you, I may have someone that I can bring on to help me work with your friend, client, and I will be involved, but I won't be hands-on. But I want to have the choice to say no.
Yes, at least it's worth reaching out, and then
It's
let me
always
take it from there.
It's always worth reaching out. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Nikki, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. This was fascinating. So many great ideas and tools that people who are listening can take back and really put into practice. Lots of things to think about. Think about your brokerage. Think about your online presence. Think about how you're reaching out to your past clients, and think about, how you're presenting yourself as the expert. So I want to thank you again so much for coming on, and I really appreciated our time today.
No, it was my pleasure. It was a delight.
And to all of our listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week. Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.